Wardrobe for the Bass Tour Anglers podcast provided by Koppel Outfitters. Go have an adventure. Visit them online at www.koppeloutfitters.com and on social media at Koppel Outfitters.
It's just been dark at night.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Pro Tactics segment. Our guest today is qualified for 6 Toyota Series championships, 3 FLW Tour championships, and a Bassmaster Classic. In 8 seasons on tour, he has 24 top 10 finishes. He has 5 pro wins, including the Toyota Series championship in 2019 and an FLW Tour win at Lake Cherokee in 2019. His YouTube channel, Andrew Upshaw Fishing, is one of the fastest growing pro angler sites. Andrew Upshaw, welcome to our show. Thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely, guys. Thank y'all so much for having me. Great introduction. Wow. I feel like I just walked out on a basketball court or something. So that was pretty cool.
There you go. We are professional here.
Heck yeah.
Hey, on the subject of YouTube, I mean, I feel like I'm an old guy, but I feel like I am getting all of my fishing information these days from YouTube. I'm not reading the magazines I used to read or anything like that. Does being a professional angler today mean you also have to be a content creator?
No, not necessarily. I mean, there's a big misconception there. Truthfully, at the end of the day, it's still all about going out there and catching bass. I just expanded my business platform to include the content creation and that part. I mean, there's still a lot of great organizations out there that help, boost anglers and give them, a lot of publicity and things like that. But I kind of took it on myself as a personal challenge, and that's just kind of where we're at today. But no, you don't have to have that now.
Well, but I mean, I find that getting to know my favorite anglers is a lot easier to do when a guy like yourself has his own channel and publishes stuff. It just feels like there's a better connection, I guess.
No, 100%. Yeah, there's a way better connection as far as fan to angler. And myself, I do a lot of live events, so I got to interact with my fans, and it's not just some straight product push, that you see maybe from a company or something like that. So they kind of get the real person, they get the ins and outs of their life and everything that they do. So yeah, no, it's definitely more of a personal touch having a YouTube channel as an angler.
Well, I'll tell you how down deep in this hole I've become. You started this Warzone series, and I never could think of myself watching somebody else play a video game. I mean, I don't mind playing a video game, but to watch somebody else play, it just had no interest. But I am watching what you're doing there, and the thing that I think is cool is not only are you playing the game, but you're talking to your fans. They're right there asking you questions. And I don't know how you can concentrate on the game when you're talking about fishing, but it's a cool thing.
No, it's an awesome concept, the way that it works. I was actually just, because everything's all about analytics, who's watching your channel, how is it performing, and things like that. My channel's been booming. I mean, it's been fantastic. The one thing I noticed, though, is I wasn't getting the younger generation involved as much as I wanted to. It had nothing to do with the fact that I wanted to grow in that aspect, but the young generation, getting them involved in fishing, you have to kind of meet at their level. You can't expect them to come to your level and have a conversation with you, but you put them on a platform that they're comfortable with, in that case, a video game. It gives them that platform to be able to talk to. And all of a sudden they're like, man, I want to try this fishing thing. Because if that's all you're talking about, it kind of brings them in a little bit. And I think and I've actually seen a 2% jump on my age gap just in the last 3 weeks. And so I'm seeing the results as it goes. But like yourself, I mean, there's a lot of older gentlemen that are on my page that have never watched a video game in their life, and they literally will sit on that stream for 3 hours. It's so awesome.
I mean, I'm telling you, I'm sitting there watching it and I'm hearing the people you're talking to. I'm going, hey, that dude sounds kind of like me. He sounds a little bit older but it's a great thing. And I just, I commend you for the foresight to that. I think it's a great way to try to reach out to the younger generation. I mean, that's always been the thing about the sport is you got to get tomorrow's anglers, into this and maybe get them away from the screen a little bit.
Yeah, and the thing is what I've always said is that we all have to have our own systematic approach to getting young people involved. There's high school fishing, there's college fishing, dads are taking their kids fishing, whatever it may be. I have a young child, he's 6 years old. So he's not quite to that age yet to where he goes fishing with me and stuff, but I really want to involve as many young people as I can. And that's just my avenue to be able to reach them at this moment, because truthfully, I really like playing that video game. It's a lot of fun. I've played games my whole life. So it's just another way to reach people. It's pretty cool.
I think it's a very cool thing. I really enjoyed your tournament content this season. I thought it was honest and realistic. I mean, when they moved those opens and squished them all together there in the fall, I guess it's nice to have the tournaments because they were canceled, but that was some brutal fishing. I asked Todd Castleton about this last week when I interviewed him. Did you guys, the group you traveled with, how did that all come together? Because it's like a bass fishing reality show.
Oh yeah, no. So basically Scott and I have roomed together for the last few years. And Scott asked me, he said, hey, do you have any of your buddies that are going to these opens? I said, hey, I got two guys that are really good friends of mine that maybe we can bring along. I said, they have different personalities. I said, I think it'd be a cool thing. We can all get in the house together. And Todd and Bradley Hallman and myself had already teamed up on YouTube as it was. So it was a very natural transition. We all kind of have our different fan base. And it just works. It's a lot of fun, though. It's a ton of fun, no doubt.
Yeah, like I said, it was funny. You could watch one of Scott's videos and then could turn around and watch yours and see kind of the same situation, only from a little bit different perspective. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, no, and that's all it was. Is I was always trying to bring your own perspective into the show itself, and mine was more of a behind the scenes true reality of like what was going on, how what we do in our off time, and we're gonna do it again next year for sure.
This segment of the Bass Tour Anglers podcast is brought to you in part by Top Tier Tackle. With over 30 years of experience in the rod building industry, look for Top Tier's XT, Affinity, and Valor series this fall, wherever fine tackle is sold. Okay, I know this has been a lot about videos, and we're going to get into the main meat and potatoes here, but I watched one that you did just very recently about the color red. And especially how it relates to pre-spawn. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about how I approach, because really out here in California where I am, we're still cold, but we're on the timer. We're getting closer and closer and closer to those months. And so I'm really thinking about what I look at as colors. I've got a box of red crankbaits and I've got red jigs at home and I throw them, but I've never really thrown them, if you know what I mean, in terms of, after listening to you talk about red, it just really opened my mind to some things. Is that something you've known for always, or how did you come across that?
I grew up on Sam Rayburn, Toledo Bend, and red is a staple color between about the months of December and about March. And if you're not throwing one, there's a lot of times you're going to get beat. Or at least back in the day, that's how it was. There's a reason that a color was named Rayburn Red.
Yeah.
So, it's something I grew up fishing a lot, and I have a lot of confidence in it. But I'm telling you right now, I've used it everywhere, and it works everywhere. And everybody thinks it's a crawfish thing, but it really isn't. And I truly believe it's not. Certain situations it might be, but I've been to places that don't have crawfish, and red still works really well. When it goes under the water, it actually turns gray. And to me, I've seen shad and things like that that I'll actually adjust colors. They'll go from that real shiny to a white. Sometimes they go to more of a transparent color. And I think to a certain degree that could be the case. And when it comes to the color red.
Okay, so after I watched that, I did some deep digging and looked at some some crawdad studies and things that from a scientific approach. And lo and behold, I found several studies that say bass they can see red and they can see green.
Mhm.
How much science do you put into that into your
Yeah,
fish?
I mean, I do it more so just based off of experience and seasons and where I'm at, time of year, things like that. Uh, if it's a pre-spawn, I'm gonna have either a chartreuse, a orange, or red on, depending on where I'm at in the country, and you pretty much can knock out any bass that you want to with those three colors. And a lot of times in practice, what I'll do is I'll actually have all three of them tied on a variety of baits and just figure out which one they're reacting to best. Um, but no, there's a certain level of where you can't get too deep into it, because if you get too much science behind it, it'll really mess you up, because there's a lot of times that bass are very unpredictable, and what you think is going on isn't really going on.
Well, I it makes a lot of sense to me though. I mean, the first real big crawdad activity period of the year is when that water starts to get above 45 degrees. Now
Absolutely.
they may not all be red, but that's
Yeah.
just, I just started, I was filling in spots that were blank in my own
Oh
thought
yeah.
process. And it would totally make sense that as that water's warming, that's going to be the first crawdad activity of the year.
Yeah, and the thing is, whenever it comes to that crawdad hatch, the fish will eat red, but if everybody in the field, it's just kind of like what I talked about in the video. If everybody's throwing that one color, then you need to probably adjust, even if that might not be the prime color. You maybe go to a brown or a white or something like that. Um, but even though I've seen it a lot of times when bass are up in like 2 foot of water and they're eating, there's a ton of bluegill there and they're not ever eating them. So that also comes into account. Maybe there's a lot of crawfish up there that maybe they aren't eating them that day. Maybe they're eating shad that day, maybe they're eating bluegill that day. And so that's where you have to really pay attention when you're out there, as to what you think the fish are eating, how they're eating your bait. One little trick that I didn't talk about in that video, you can always tell if they're eating crawfish by the color of their lips. Their lips will be very, very red, and that's from eating crawfish. And you actually feel their bellies; they'll be really, really hard. Sometimes you can look down their throats and see claws. So if you pay attention to those little details like that, a lot of times you can figure out exactly what to throw.
Now, when you say red, you mean kind of because they're kind of torn up from the hard shells. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh, that's a really, really good point that you make on that. Uh, yeah, good thing to observe. So when you are fishing a red bait,
Mhm.
in your mind, are you mimicking? What are you trying to mimic then? Are you thinking crawdad when you're throwing that, or what are you thinking?
I think if I'm throwing a red bait that time of year, it's a lot of it's a reaction, anyway. And I want to find out whatever color that they're reacting to the best. And some days it changes. Some days it's white, sometimes it's gold, sometimes it's chrome. Um, but day in and day out, red seems to be the best color they react to in the early part of the year. Um, and they always eat it the best. You hardly ever have a red crankbait, or in the case of me fishing down in Rayburn, a red trap where they've got one little hook here. Most of the time they've got the bait down their throat, and that's what they want.
This is just a really interesting thing that you're talking about here, because I think that when angler goes in tackle shop and sees red crankbait or red anything, they're thinking crawdad. But you're not necessarily thinking crawdad, and I think that's really, really important for people to grasp. And I think it's a good nugget people will take from this interview. Do you think it's important for an angler to, when they're whatever they have in their mind that they're throwing, or is it even important for them to think, oh, I'm fishing a crawdad bait, or I'm fishing a shad bait, or as you said, is it just a reaction bait and you should fish it the way you fish a reaction bait? Is there
You just fish the way you fish a reaction bait. I mean, there's certain parts of the country where they are 100% keying on crawfish, like a Table Rock, Lake of the Ozarks, places that the crawdad population is a lot higher. Places where I'm from, like a Sam Rayburn, Toledo, man, you're literally throwing a red rattle trap or red red-eyed shad, whatever lipless crankbait you're throwing, and you're throwing it like 4 foot off the bottom. You're reeling it through that grass, and there's no crawfish going to swim 4 foot off the bottom through the top end of the grass. So, I mean, if you put it into perspective, no, they're not eating crawfish up there. So they have to be eating something else, or you're just causing them to react. And so now if you're digging the bottom and they're eating it like that, then yeah, they're probably eating crawfish, but they're not eating crawfish at the top end of the grass. Not happening.
Okay, I just think that is really, really good because that allows an angler to fish that bait the way that they're comfortable fishing it, and it is the color. You're fishing red. You're not fishing crawdad. You're fishing red, and I think that's really an important thing to get. Now, you feel that way? I'm assuming most of the time we're talking about a rattle trap or a crankbait. Do you throw red jigs also? Do you throw red vibrating jigs? Or do you throw?
I caught quite a few on a red jig out at Clear Lake with a what we call a Falcon Lake Crawl structure bug on it. But I mean, I'll throw red vibrating jig a lot. A red vibrating jig is fantastic in the first couple months of the year. And if I remember correctly, out in California, one of the big baits out there is a solid red spinner bait. So if you think about it, I mean, what is that really imitating? It's just loud. It's out there in your face. Why do they eat a pink worm? Why do they eat a methylate worm? Right. You know, I mean, what does that look to them naturally? I think all it does is they can see it from a long ways off, and it makes them react because maybe because a bass is a very curious creature. And if they see a red bait buzz by their face, they're more than likely going to eat it.
Are you looking for a bass rod that won't break your bank? Introducing the XT series from Top Tier Tackle. Proprietary carbon nano blank, grade A full cork handle and foregrip, top performing stainless steel, tangle-free guides, lightweight and durable, and a 1-year limited warranty. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram at Top Tier Tackle LLC. Visit their website at www.t3rods.com. I think this is really, really good stuff. I mean, it's just, to me, this is dispelling rumors. I mean, I think an angler still might have to think in their own head. They may have to think that way, but I think this frees a person up from having to think, okay, I'm imitating a crawdad right now, so I got to retrieve this way or whatever. It's just a red bait, and you fish it the way it normally gets fished, and there's a chance the fish is going to see it better because it is red. That's what they see.
Well, fishermen overcomplicate everything.
Yes,
they try to overthink stuff. They try to think that they know better. And sometimes it's as simple as picking up a crankbait, going down the bank and throwing it. And sometimes it's red and sometimes it's white. And you just got to figure out which color they want the best that day. And some days it changes. So, I mean, more so than not, if you just go fishing and put your head down and try a variety of colors and baits and don't let the whole mentality of match the hatch come into your brain, you're going to probably do way better that day of fishing.
That's great advice. That's great advice. So from a pre-spawn standpoint, how about 5 baits that you might put on your deck if you were going fishing tomorrow? What are 5 different kind of baits you'd have out there? Or would you have 5?
I'd have a flat-sided crankbait. I'd have a shad wrap. I'd probably have like a jig and spoon, a deep diving crankbait for sure, and probably a drop shot would be my 5 baits. Because the deal is as like a day like today in Oklahoma, it was extremely cold this morning. It was like 23 degrees. And right now it's 55 degrees. So as that day warms up, those fish are going to move up shallower. But first thing in the morning, I'd go out there, jig a spoon, use my live scope, catch them on a drop shot, catch them on a spoon. And as the day warms up, then I would gravitate towards that shallow water and start catching them as well.
Very good. Now, how important are rocks to you in shallower water in the early spring?
I mean, they're important to a certain level. It just kind of depends what kind of rocks, and is the whole lake surrounded with rocks, or is it just like one little rock jetty, whatever it may be. You know, like on a lake like Sam Rayburn, there's a couple rock banks, you know, that fish might move up on, but you're wasting your time going over there to fish them because the fish are in the grass. So depending on what body of water you're on is going to really depend on if they're using the rocks or if they're using stumps or docks, whatever cover they might be holding on. Yes, the rocks warm up faster, so they tend to gravitate to them. But if there's a small amount of rocks on the lake that you're fishing, it kind of gets overfished, and people don't, the fish just don't ever move up on them, right?
That makes good sense. That makes really good sense. What's your 2021 season going to look like? What are you going to do? What series, what events, and so on?
I'm going to be.
Fish the U.S. Open again?
I will be fishing the U.S. Open. I'm going to fish all 9 Bassmaster Opens, and I'm going to shoot a ton of YouTube content, and I'm also going to shoot 10 episodes of Let's Fish TV, which is aired on Fox Sports South and Southeast.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm shooting 10. I'll be the guest host on those for 10 episodes, so that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm on the road all the time. I'm fishing somewhere.
That Northern Open Series got a lot of New York lakes. How do you do up there? A lot of smallmouth.
I actually do better with smallmouth than I do just about anything else. I mean, both wins that I had were all smallmouth.
True. Yeah.
So one was at Cherokee. I caught them spawning there, and then at Cumberland, I caught them in the fall on a jig, flipping a jig on bluffs. So, I mean, smallmouths just come naturally. I come from a largemouth background, but smallmouth are my best friend.
That's great. Can you give us any updates? Anything new coming that we should be looking for on your YouTube channel?
Actually, it's funny you say that. The one thing that I would want everybody to know is every single Sunday, I post a schedule on what I'm going to post that week on YouTube. And that was my New Year's resolution, is to stay on top of that, which is going to be really hard to do.
Yeah.
But I want my followers and fans and subscribers to understand that they know exactly what's coming, when it's coming, and there's no more guessing. And I think that's the most important aspect that I can take away, is that, and the fact is I'm still going to be streaming Warzone and shooting videos and tip videos and things. So, I mean, I'm a busy guy. I'm always on the road. So
Warzone tonight, right?
Warzone is tonight. Yes, it is. 8:30, 11:30.
All right.
It's funny. My wife only lets me do it about anywhere between 2 to 3 days a week. So I'm on her timeline. She says you can stream between 8:30 and 11:30, and that's the time that you get to stream, and the rest of the nights are for her. So I'm on the road so much that when I'm home, she wants me to be there, and I get it. So it's just kind of mutual agreement that we have worked out.
Well, hey, Andrew, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Like I said, I've done a lot of watching, and you're a guy that I've kind of had on my scope for wanting to come on. And when I saw that red video the other day, I think we got to talk about red. And like I said, I'm even more expanded than I was before we started. So thanks for joining us today, and good luck in the season. We'll keep in touch with you. All right.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Thank you. Wardrobe for the Bass Tour Anglers podcast is provided by Koppel Outfitters. Go have an adventure. Visit them online at www.koppeloutfitters.com and on social media at Koppel Outfitters.